Over the holiday period, I finally decided to take the dive into Origin after explicitly trying to avoid using it for many years. In this video I intend to explain why I was opposed to Origin, how EA helped by making games I was fundamentally not interested in for many years, and what finally turned me around. The games in the background this time are some of the ones that I've picked up over the holiday period from Origin itself. I would have liked to shown some others, but it turns out it's hard work trying to video capture Red Alert 2. Origin was first released back in 2011 at a point that I'd predominantly started playing Xbox 360 games almost exclusively. I even started playing FPS games with a controller. It was a dark time. But also, Steam had finally started to become more than hindering DRM software and become transforming the PC platform. EA didn't initially enforce Origin on all games, just some of the key players like Battlefield 3 and FIFA 12. Neither game particularly provided sufficient justification, to me at any rate, to abandon Steam, which was quickly becoming the standard platform on PC. It very much seemed that they were attempting to force a divide between the two companies purely for monetary gain, but it was too late. They entered the fray with an underdeveloped and unstable platform and were trying to fight against a platform which had just found its feet. But aside from the platform getting pretty damning reviews, reports of disconnections and poor support services, EA also managed to only release games which either involve sports I couldn't care less about, or disappointing reboots and sequels which damaged the memories of much-loved series. Admittedly, a lot of this damage had already been done on the lead up to the release of Origin, particularly with series like Command & Conquer and Need for Speed, both of which had been gradually getting worse for many years. EA's initial takeover of Westwood, although turbulent, didn't seem to be a death blow by any means, as they happened to release what I consider to be the best RTS game of all time, Red Alert 2. Which also forms part of the reason for me finally coming back to Origin, as you can get the complete collection of Command & Conquer for pretty cheap in a sale. But the golden years quickly came to an end when Westwood was dissolved and EA tried to continue the franchise themselves, steadily getting worse each time. Particularly with Red Alert 3 trying to replicate the same feel but missing the point by being overly camp, making it average at best, and the death of the series finally coming in the form of Command & Conquer 4, which I'll try some other time. Maybe. Need for Speed was also a series which seemed to have gone past its prime when Origin arrived. Although it had had a few questionable releases through the years, Need for Speed Most Wanted, as in the original one because they later reused the name, subtitle and all to achieve optimum confusion, was probably the final good game. I tried the likes of Need for Speed Carbon and Pro Street, but they were absolutely awful, and EA didn't really help matters by releasing the same game year after year, taking features out in one only to add them back in as new features in the next one, and by using the same cars in every game. Not happy with killing one franchise, they also seemed to absorb the Burnout series into Need for Speed by slowly adding the features in and eventually just stopping releasing Burnout entirely. This all being said, I've started playing the latest offering, and so far it seems okay. I'll probably do a full review on it in the near future. Those were the main series that I had a strong connection to, but there were also a number of others which I just seemed to stop playing entirely, such as Battlefield, as I got the impression that it had fallen entirely into the COD clone category, and SimCity for reasons I don't fully understand myself, as the last one I really played was SimCity 2000. There's also loads of other series which I never really got involved with as well, like Mass Effect, Dragon Age and Dead Space. Not because they didn't interest me, but purely because I was playing other things. It's scary when you actually stop and think about the number of huge franchises EA has its claws stuck into. Anyway, that's enough complaining that EA are franchise-killing, money-grabbing, backstabbing bastards, because I've joined the legion of Origin users, and I have to justify why I've come crawling back. I've been considering joining it for a while purely to relive the glory days of the olden Command & Conquers again, which I've managed to resist for so long, but the first reason is really the release of Battlefield 1, and claims that it had gone back to its roots, so naturally I've got to find out if it really has. But the real clincher for me was the point I started to think about why I was avoiding them, which is that they had a separate platform. But almost every other major developer now has its own platform. Uplay, Battle.net, GOG Galaxy, the list goes on and on and on, and I use these without even questioning them. Now, some of them are linked in through Steam and that makes it somewhat more acceptable, but when I thought about it more in depth, Uplay is absolutely awful. I mean, to the point where some of the games I've tried have been completely unplayable. How can I possibly justify not using Origin when I use Uplay? I do also think to some degree it's to do with the Steam sale being worse than normal, and it made the prices on Origin seem better as well. Battlefield 1 was £25, which is pretty good for a game that's only a couple of months old. So there you have it. I justified it to myself not because Origin has finally proven itself, or because EA are finally making good games again, but because Ubisoft have made the worst piece of software since MSN Messenger.